As the title suggests, men who don't share costs evenly on dates and do not expect or want girls to pay. Why don't you go 50-50? Story 1. We have been dating for a couple of months and make similar salaries. I often pay the restaurant bill because she enjoys the feeling of having the man pay, and she shows appreciation each time I treat her. She often suggests splitting the bill if it is expensive, but I'm always glad to cover it. We both have a good relationship with money and openly discuss our financial goals. She does pay for some things, and she is caring and contributes a lot. Most of the time, she is the one cooking great meals with her groceries. For trips and major activities, we split the costs evenly. If we move in together, household expenses will also be shared equally. While we are not equal on everything due to societal norms, I feel she is giving her all, and she feels the same about me. That is what truly matters in our relationship. Story 2. I come from a poor background. We never had much money when I was young. I was raised by a single mother in the working class. One day, my uncle made a fortune with an invention, and from that day on, he helped the family financially. When I was a bit older, around the age of 18, I asked him why he would do that. He then said to me, "You know how it is to double-check for every dollar you spend. Think about this. Your friends asked you last week to meet them at a bar, and you told me the next day that once you saw the prices, you had one drink the whole evening because that was all you could afford? You wanted one more cocktail, but the budget just wouldn't allow it? You thought about it the whole evening, and if you think back on it, that soured the mood for you, didn't it? Even with your friends, something that should give you joy, you were preoccupied with the price of a cocktail." Then he said, "I bet when we entered that pizza place, you immediately checked for the daily or weekly special and hoped it would be something you liked. Once we sat down and I told you, 'It's on me today,' you immediately stopped thinking about money, and you enjoyed this just like you should." He was right. When we entered the pizza place, I was looking for the daily special, which was pasta. Even though I wanted pizza, I was fully prepared to have that pasta to save $5. Once my uncle said, "It's on me today," I heard the chef's mix is the best pizza in town. I forgot about money immediately. Then he said, "If you can afford it, and you know someone else isn't as blessed as you are financially, then do something good. It's just money anyway. Make them forget about one worry, even if it's just for an evening, whether it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner." So here we are. I am fortunate enough to do that too these days. I will pay for anyone's food or drinks if I know it might be a struggle for them. Just like my uncle, I will announce this at the start of whatever is going on so they will forget about it. Whether this is a date with a woman or going out for 2 beers with a friend who just lost his job makes no difference to me. However, I will say I was on a date once with a woman who was a manager. She ordered the most expensive wine, the most expensive appetizer, the most expensive main course, and dessert. At the end, when we were about to get the check, she went to the toilet with the words, "You will take care of this like a gentleman, right?" She didn't even wait for a response. She just walked away. I took that to heart and did the same. I paid for my items and left before she came back from the restroom. Story 3. At the risk of being downvoted to oblivion, I'll say it anyway. There is a significant amount of judgment if you don't conform, even from women who prefer to pay for themselves for various reasons. Very rarely does anyone actually push back against me paying for everything. Even if people are okay with splitting the bill, I've found that they often think less of you for letting them pay half when they offer, as most offers are simply empty gestures or tests. I'm not saying all women are like this, just most of the ones I have encountered and heard about, even in highly liberal circles. It's easier to just not go out or pay for things when I do go out. It saves a lot of headaches, hassles, and mind games because society is challenging. Story 4. I prefer that money is not an issue on dates. I know how much I have, and as long as I can afford it, I will go out. It's not only about dates. If I go out with friends who I know don't earn much, such as soldiers or students, I will pay. Story 5. My wife makes significantly less money than I do. Splitting expenses evenly would either require her to live beyond her means or me to live below mine. Story 6. Every woman I've dated has earned significantly less than I have. It feels inappropriate to ask someone making $18 an hour to pay half when I initiated the date. Story 7. Nothing dries the situation up like a woman reaching for her wallet. This is a don't hate the player, hate the game scenario. Story 8. I'm old school. I want to be able to give her a good evening without her needing to worry about anything. Story 9. It is a sign of commitment, a promise that I am willing to take care of her, especially if she is unable to take care of herself. That day will come soon if we decide to have children together. Pregnancy and childbirth can be incredibly draining on a woman, and it takes immense trust to commit to having children with a specific partner. I demonstrate my commitment to her by paying for our dates when she shares the privilege of her company. I have been married for 10 years to a wonderful woman who is not materialistic but appreciates that I pay for our dates. Story 10. I believe that if a man does not offer to pay for the entire date when he asks someone out, he may not have been raised properly. However, I also believe that if a woman allows him to pay for everything without at least offering to contribute half, she may likewise not have been raised properly. I generally pay on the first date, especially if I was the one who asked. However, I really appreciate when women offer to pay. Nowadays, my girlfriend and I split the costs evenly most of the time but treat each other regularly. Story 11. I have more money than I need. I earn a good income, have no children, and no past marital baggage. My house and cars are all paid off, so I have no debt and very few bills. Paying means nothing to me. I cover the expenses for all my dates, regardless of the cost. It's simply part of doing business. Story 12. I enjoy earning reward points on my credit card. If the lady feels strongly about paying her half, I won't make a fuss about it. She is welcome to choose the tip, dessert afterward, the next date, or send me money through a payment app. Story 13. I can afford it. I usually want to impress her as well. I will not say no if she insists, but since I can afford it and do not mind, I will not bother asking. Story 14. Because I know that women will be more attracted to me if I pay. Women are attracted to men who can provide, who have wealth and power. If you share expenses equally, then you are slightly less attractive to them. Story 15. I have no problem treating her, paying for things, or working extra hours. It makes me feel good. It's part of the instinctive expression of love. The issue arises when it becomes an expectation. I do not care about tradition. I will not be taken advantage of. Find someone who doesn't want anything from you but gets everything they want from you, as my friend put it. Story 16. Because it is the expectation, and if you do not meet that expectation, your chances of getting a steady partner decrease significantly. If you do not meet that expectation, someone else will. Once you have that steady partner, expectations change. Do not blame me. I do not make the rules. I am just stating the facts. Story 17. When I agree to go on a date, I am agreeing to fully support a life with another person joining me. From the beginning of going on dates to the possibility of her moving in with me in the future, I will never initiate a relationship with a woman if I can't fully support her. She shouldn't have to contribute anything to my life, except for a positive attitude, fun, cleanliness, and maybe some good cooking. I care more about my peace than about her having a job and contributing to bills. I have all that covered, along with retirement, savings, and monthly trips for fun. I don't need her money. I need her fun, smile, love, food, and cuddles. That's all. And I require complete loyalty. If other men approach you, you should politely decline or give them false numbers if necessary. Story 18. I like to protect and provide for the women in my life so they feel safe and secure. It makes me happy to see them happy and enjoying a comfortable life. However, there are high standards for someone to be in my life and deserve this treatment. Story 19. This isn't hard to figure out. It works the same for male and female acquaintances. If I like you and want you around more, I will reduce your life burden and increase your life rewards. If I don't like you, I will give you basic human respect and leave you to your own devices. I buy people I like gifts all the time. It's because I like them. If anyone seems obsessively transactional, whether platonically or romantically, I get annoyed. I'm always on the side giving more, and I couldn't care less. The people who track receipts absolutely destroy social cohesion in any but the largest groups doing the most serious tasks. As for the individuals who are upset at the idea of treating someone to a free meal, they're lost causes. I will buy my male friends dinner without thinking twice. Going out to eat with people is just an effective bonding tool regardless of romantic intention. To totally miss all of that and only focus on the transactional etiquette of explicitly trying to court someone is hilarious, but also concerning in the sense that these people are out there in the world doing things at any given moment. Story 20. My wife and I have joint finances, so even if I receive the check, it will still come from our joint account. Story 21. My wife is on active duty, and I am a computer programmer working in science for the federal government. I earn a higher salary. However, she covers our rent and medical insurance while I handle the utilities. Additionally, I want to treat my wife to the finest sushi rolls. My father and grandfather, who come from old money, taught me that a man provides, and I take pride in providing. Story 22. 50-50 isn't actually 50-50. Hear me out. I make a lot of money and have never dated a woman who earned more than I do. So let's say the date costs $100. When you look at that $50 as a percentage of someone's monthly income, it's not the same for someone who makes $350,000 a year as it is for someone making $35,000 a year. Simply put, I can afford it. Other considerations. Chances are good that I extended the invitation, so it makes sense that it would be my treat. Nothing kills the vibe of a nice date like dragging out the calculator. She had to find and pay for a sitter. She had to find something nice to wear and spend a lot of time on makeup and hair. She's already invested in this date. I had to brush my teeth and put on a shirt. It's the least I can do. Really. Story 23. I live in a more conservative society, and this is the norm. I don't mind it. To be fair, I don't take girls out for a steak dinner the moment I meet them. My mother raised me to be a gentleman, and she always insisted I pay whenever I asked her for money to take a girl out since I was a teenager. I don't even think about it. I appreciate it when girls offer to pay for themselves, but I still turn them down. I'm not going to go broke paying for a coffee, a museum ticket, or whatever. Story 24. Because I earn significantly more than my partner, splitting expenses evenly feels unfair. It means I have 10% of my discretionary spending compared to 80% of hers. I want us to enjoy maximum fun without her feeling financial pressure or burden. Story 25. Even when my parents take out their friends, they pay for everything. Making it messier than necessary doesn't help. If you want everyone to contribute, do it after the event and use a payment app to settle up. Story 26. My salary has been about 3 times more than any woman I have dated in the past 4 years. It would not be fair to have them pay. Story 27. I don't understand the men here saying their wife is broke. My wife and I have debit cards to the same bank account. I make significantly more than she does, but we share the same money. She's not broke. She's my partner in life. Story 28. It's been a while since I dated in the early to mid-2000s, but I've never let a date pay. You want to treat them to a nice night out, and that usually sets the mood for a pleasant evening. Story 29. I don't even split things evenly with my family, so why would I do that on a date? There has been one instance in the last year where the bill was split when I was out, and that was because we had a strange mix of family and work friends. If no one beats me to it or I'm on a date, I pay. I forgot to mention the reason. It makes much more sense for me to pay because I have the ability and freedom to do so. Yes, I was also raised this way. The people who beat me to paying are usually other men during family gatherings, and they are individuals I appreciate and want to emulate. Plus, it feels good to pay. I may not ever cook delicious meals, but I will make sure my loved ones taste the best food I can find. Family get-togethers always have the best desserts, and until local bakeries became available, I would drive 3 hours to get cheesecake for big holidays if I had the time. Story 30. Getting downvoted by women? This is a great question, as I just don't understand why someone wouldn't split 50-50, except for areas that still have a sense of traditionalism on both sides. In California, where I live, there is no such place by any means. Story 31. My wife is the primary earner, but I don't let her pay unless I forget my wallet or send her cash for our expenses. In those cases, it comes from me regardless of whose card is used. Story 32. The way I was raised, which is common in many countries, is that money can always be made, but leaving a good impression can only happen a few times. If a girl is on a first date with me and I don't feel a connection, I pay for the date once, then I would end it. I wouldn't go on multiple dates with someone hoping we eventually click. Story 33. If I am going to eat a $50 ribeye and a Manhattan while she has a salad and lemonade, I will pay for it 100% of the time. Story 34. I earn 3 times what she earns. When we go out or order takeout, I pay. When we eat at home, she cooks and consequently pays. Bonus, she is Korean, so her cooking is amazing. Story 35. My wife is a stay-at-home mom, and I am the primary earner. I cannot expect her to contribute 50% to anything when all the work she does is unpaid. Story 36. Because I love to be the provider. I love to be needed, respected, and looked up to, but only by women who do not abuse that. Story 37. I earn more money than she does, and since she's my girlfriend, I will try to provide everything she needs as she does her best to make me happy and be a perfect partner. When we go out for dinner, it is usually my treat, except when the bill is particularly high. For hotels, we split the cost evenly. Story 38. Because the women I am interested in have options, the difference between spending money and not spending money on her share of dinner or entertainment is irrelevant. Can't afford it? Let it motivate you to make more money. Story 39. I am a traditional guy. I am not opposed to splitting the bill. I have no problem with letting a woman pay. However, if I am making the plans, which I usually do because women appreciate men who take the initiative, then I pay. For me, I earn quite well for my age, about double the average salary, so it feels natural for me to cover the costs. If a woman offers to pay, I always accept, regardless of her reasons. I find it stingy to ask someone else to pay when I can do so myself. This applies to both friends and dates. I cannot bring myself to say phrases like, "Can you cover this?" or "Let's split it," unless it's for something significant, such as a hotel room over $100. For example, I recently shared the cost of a hotel room with some friends for a wedding, but I still bought him and his wife a beer while we were waiting for the ceremony to start, and he later returned the favor. Generally, on dates, the expenses are well within my budget, and I pay without thinking about it. Story 40. I pay for nearly everything, but that is just because my wife is shy and prefers not to interact with people if she can avoid it. We combine our income, so my paying is simply the act of settling up the bill. The money is ours, and she makes more than I do, so I guess technically she is contributing more than I am. When I was in the dating world, I usually paid for everything on a date. It was just the way I was raised, and I saw no reason to do it any other way. It didn't bother me, and it didn't bother the women I dated. I only dated one girl who ever expected me to pay, and I ended that relationship pretty quickly when it became obvious she was using me for free meals and movies. Everyone else offered to pay or split costs, and I turned down the offer unless they seemed to really want to pay for something. Story 41. When I was dating, I didn't split expenses evenly simply because most of the women I dated were college students or recent graduates and had limited funds. We were the same age, but I didn't attend college, so I was more financially stable. Now, with my girlfriend, I don't split everything evenly because I want to spoil her. Yes, it would be fair for us to share costs and she can afford it. But she's the love of my life. I would much rather go above and beyond for her than ensure that everything we do is always fair. She would do the same for me without hesitation if she could. Story 42. It is unattractive for a man to discuss or debate who should pay when the check arrives. Women notice these behaviors, so be cautious when on a date and avoid raising any red flags. Story 43. It is a social norm and standard. I don't choose for it to be that way, so I do it without thinking about it too much. Additionally, I feel a sense of self-worth because I meet social expectations. However, I have other requirements for my girlfriend, so I expect something in return in a different way. Story 44. For me, it is part of my love language. In fact, it encompasses two of them. It is part gift and quality time in this language. Money is not a factor in my decision. Story 45. I thought you meant a 50-50 split for housework and indoor cleaning among married couples, which is where my mind went. To answer your question, there are two reasons. 1. The woman may have less money than the man and could even be financially struggling. Traditionally, this is how it has worked. So many women may feel that a man does not care for them if he wants her to split the bill. If you want a second date and like her, and you believe she might want to go out again, just pay the bill in my opinion. Story 46. It depends on who I meet. I work in technology and earn more money than most people I know, so I am perfectly happy to pay more than my dates, whether men or women or even my friends when we hang out. I remember what it is like to be broke and face financial challenges. And I am glad to help those who might have obstacles to consider before meeting up. Story 47. I believe that both men and women have valuable contributions to make in a relationship, although these contributions may not always be monetary. Traditionally, the financial responsibilities tend to fall more heavily on men. Story 48. Because my dad raised me to compete to pay for dinner, it has escalated over time and he still often wins. We are at the point where I sometimes sneak to the waiter station on the way to the bathroom to pay when he's not looking. It's an ongoing competition and I will win. Story 49. Many men have a deep-rooted urge to provide resources that are difficult to acquire. I can imagine that being a caveman and bringing back a large animal to cook for the whole tribe was nature's equivalent of having 4 beers and smoking a cigarette before those existed. You probably felt like a hero after doing so. In modern times, I believe most men want to convey that a woman wouldn't need to work if they had children. Additionally, women who must work to provide often have a higher chance of being unhappy in a relationship. Story 50. Women are attracted to generous, financially stable men. That's it. I believe paying for dinner increases my chances of forming a connection. It seems straightforward to me. Story 51. I date men and usually split the bill, but if he is younger than me or I know he is not earning as much, I pay. Similarly, if I dated a wealthy man, he would feel obliged. Simpler. Story 52. Honestly, they just like it. The females of our species enjoy having the males invest resources in them while courting. It is not a requirement, and whether it is inherent or cultural, we are still animals. I see it as any other mating ritual in the animal kingdom. Story 53. I earn 6 figures. Most women I date are waitresses, baristas, or college students, so I naturally pay for the date. It's the right thing to do when I appreciate them. Additionally, I want to embrace my role as a man, so I can reasonably expect her to embrace her role as a woman. Story 54. From what my female friends have told me, if she really insists on paying, she isn't interested in sleeping with you. If she does, she is. Story 55. A couple of reasons I feel I should pay the bill when asking her out and choosing the place include. If I am asking her out and picking the location, I believe I should cover the cost. Additionally, as a woman, she likely incurs more expenses preparing for the date than I do. Clothes are often more expensive, along with hair, makeup, and nails. I'm not suggesting she has to go out for these services, but even if she does it at home, there is still an expense that I do not have. I earn enough to feel comfortable paying. If I am unsure of her financial situation, I want to avoid putting her in an uncomfortable position. If she insists, I would either let her pay or suggest that she choose the next place and handle the expenses, or we could split the bill. Story 56. With my partner, sometimes she pays and sometimes I pay. Splitting a bill can be a hassle. For a first date, I usually suggest a coffee date with a new person. I don't mind covering that for a first date, as I'm unsure if there will be a second. It depends on the situation, but the more I'm expected to pay, the less interested I am in doing so. If you offer, and I believe it's sincere, or if you paid last time, I'm much more likely to take care of it. Story 57. If I ask a woman out on a date, she is my guest. I am happy to pay for everything. If she insists on paying half, we can do that. If she wants to pay entirely from time to time, that is fine too. Just be nice and accommodating. Story 58. Try being a man who only shares expenses equally and see if that works. Most women don't appreciate it because they feel we owe them our money. Story 59. I might get downvoted for this, but I think the people who argue about splitting expenses are often those who cannot afford to pay all the time. There is nothing wrong with that. This situation calls for a genuine conversation and vulnerability. I have noticed that many people with higher incomes do not seem to care about contributing. However, this still warrants a conversation. If you feel unappreciated in your relationship, you should communicate with your partner and express the ways you feel they can better support you. Story 60. It is deeply rooted in biology. Let me explain my train of thought before you start to downvote. Men are attracted to nice-looking women. We want to pass our genetic material to the next generation. Therefore, we choose healthy and attractive mates. Women also need to consider another important factor: the safety of their offspring. They need a mate who has the strength or resources to secure their children until adulthood. Men paying for dinner send a subconscious message to women. I can take care of you and your children. I have resources. I know. Humans are an enlightened species. After all, we broke free from the shackles of evolution. But every now and then, these subconscious instincts take over us in subtle ways. We can be upset. We can label ourselves or others, but these are the fundamental reasons behind our decisions. So yes, women tend not to look kindly on men who, while courting them, do not provide for them. Story 61. While I think it's a nice gesture for someone to offer to pay for the first date, I believe it's even more significant to foster an understanding early on about financial perspectives and habits. Whoever initiates the date might foot the bill as a courtesy, but it's the mutual appreciation and respect shown when both parties are willing to share expenses that lay a strong foundation for a balanced relationship. As a relationship matures, it becomes less about who pays and more about the joy of simply spending time together. My partner and I sometimes split the bill. Other times, one of us treats the other. It's a give and take that feels natural and is not tied to any dated societal norms. It's refreshing when the value of the company overshadows the value of the check. Story 62. I don't hold this view of how men should be in general, but I am a fully masculine, stereotypical man. If I can't express that in a relationship, I will not be happy. I am a provider and a traditional man. Story 63. Because I'm wealthy enough to pay, and it's incredibly unrefined not to. Any guy who asks a girl on a date and then asks her to split the bill is inconsiderate. Story 64. In general, men pay for the date when they want to impress a woman. It's not impressive on its own, but rather a sign that he appreciates her and is willing to do things for her. A sign that he is committed to her. Story 65. Because even though I think an equal contribution should be the standard, I also understand that you have to navigate the early stages of dating. An equal contribution is a great idea if you want to create a lasting connection. Story 66. I was taught a simple rule. If you invite someone somewhere, it is understood that you intend to pay for the invitee. If you offer someone to join you somewhere, it is understood that it will be split 50-50ths. For example, would you like to visit that new restaurant together? 50-50ths. I want to ask you out for a date at that new restaurant. You pay. In the first case, if she offers to split the bill, that is a good sign. However, I will still pay for everything. If she insists on splitting the cost, I will agree because it may make her uncomfortable otherwise. Story 67. If I invite you out, I expect to pay, and I am okay with that. However, if you offer to pay for half or for your meal, I will gladly accept. If we go out and it seems like you are just using me for a meal while ordering expensive items, then you will need to pay for yourself. Story 68. This whole thread makes me feel frustrated. If you earn 10 times what your partner does, you should pay for everything. At what point does it become financially reckless or concerning if you and your partner earn similar amounts but she refuses to contribute financially? Story 69. I'm a doctor. My brother works at a cannabis dispensary, and my sister is a bank teller. They both have children. I do not. When I buy tickets for the baseball game or cover the dinner bill, it's because there is an imbalance in how much it affects us. The money they could use for necessities outside of socializing is significantly more important. Story 70. If you want to split the costs evenly, you should provide an itemized price list for everything that will happen during the date when you ask them. It is unreasonable to expect them to pay half without knowing the details. You must ensure that you only consume 50% of the cost. You cannot order steak and a whiskey flight if they choose a garden salad and sparkling water. Remember, it's a date, not just two friends going to a game. Story 71. Most men who seek an equal partnership often do not engage in cleaning, cooking, or household chores. This has been my experience until I met my current boyfriend. Story 72. It all depends on circumstances. I am a self-employed house painter who can earn well over what I need to sustain myself in a month while living with my grandmother and being childless. If I go on a date with a mother who works full-time and is struggling to make ends meet, it wouldn't be rude for me to expect her to pay for herself. But in my opinion, it would be unkind. I have the income to spend an extra $50 to $100, but she does not. However, if I go on a date with a woman who owns her own company and is doing as well as I am, then it is fair for us to split the expenses. Story 73. If I am really into a girl, I will pay and say she can get the next one. I keep getting them because it is not an issue, but it means a lot when they remember they owe me and try to beat me to it. Story 74. Tradition is the voice of our ancestors. It has always been this way, and there are certain expectations for women that can determine if she is worth taking to dinner again. Story 75. Because I likely have more than she does, and unfortunately, it is rare to find women who take initiative. I believe that the person who asks should be the one to pay. Story 76. I ask and I pay. I have dated feminist women and more traditional women and have never had a problem. Sometimes they repay the favor by cooking for me or buying drinks, but in general, I pay. The woman I date now is wonderful and makes good money. Occasionally, she pays or picks up the tip, but we both know that I pay. Story 77. Women are only expected to contribute in ways they want to. Men are expected to contribute fully. Anything my wife cannot or will not pay for becomes a problem for me, even if it's not something I particularly want. I was taking steps to get into a higher paying field before I even proposed. The job I have now is much more stressful, but I do it because we need the money. I paid for roughly 80% of our $25,000 wedding. We want a house and my wife wants children. I am the one researching the cost of both. I once suggested that she consider getting a higher paying job. She is currently underpaid at her job, but her friends work there, so she does not want to go elsewhere. She accused me of not supporting her career, so I dropped it. She could make at least $20,000 more annually by doing the same job 2 blocks away from where she currently works, but she does not have to. Figuring out the financial side of things is my problem. In almost 2 years since we got married, I have likely paid an extra $5,000 toward her student loans, more if you include the credit card debt from last year. However, I feel guilty spending $75 to $100 on a video game for myself. In terms of early dating, it is even worse. Many women talk a good game about dates, but you definitely have to earn the right for a woman to do anything for you financially. Whenever I hear the "whoever asks should pay" statement from women, I ask how many times they have asked a man out. The highest number I have heard is twice. Any woman who split a bill with me did so because she knew she did not want to go out again. Any woman I went on multiple dates with had zero expectations of paying, even if they brought money just in case. My wife did not pay for a date until we were 2 years into our relationship. In the 9 years we have been together, she has maybe taken me out 10 times, with 3 of those being in the last couple of months. While I appreciate the gesture, I am a much better date planner. On a broader scale, society evaluates you based on your ability to fund your partner's dreams. Whenever I meet one of my wife's family members or friends, the main thing they remember about me is that I spent some money on her. Oh, this is the one that paid for that birthday trip? Or something similar. I attended an event with my wife about 2 months before our wedding. Most attendees were people from her church who did not know me. Her pastor made a joke about a shotgun wedding or making sure I showed up. I jokingly responded, "I have paid $20,000 for this wedding so far. I will be there. Everyone else's attendance is in jeopardy." Once he and some others at the table heard that amount, there were no more comments about evaluating me or questioning what I was about. The 7 years of being a patient, understanding, and faithful boyfriend did not matter. The fact that my wife, her mom, and her friends all agree that I am the best partner she has ever had did not matter. The fact that I paid for everything wedding-related except the dress at that point without help mattered. The fact that I spent $1,000 on a birthday weekend for her a few years prior mattered. The fact that I never asked her for money mattered. I was viewed as a real man or a good man because I was willing to put down large sums of money for her, despite the fact that I really did not want to. To be clear, my wife is wonderful. She excels at many things and is much less materialistic than many other women. I am willing to do these things because I believe she is overall worth keeping around. I am using these occurrences to illustrate my point. However, if I were to be in a serious accident tomorrow, my wife would be in significant financial trouble. If she were in a serious accident, I would have to return to buying 100% of my own groceries. In summary, I do not pursue a 50-50 approach because society does not respect you if you do, and most women are not actually equipped to do it because it is not generally required. Story 78. In all my relationships, whoever reached their wallet first was the one paying. During pre-relationship dates, whoever asked the other out was usually the one paying. Story 79. In a world where things still aren't equal, I don't think I'd expect my date to pay exactly half. Women still don't get paid the same for doing the same work. Yes, there are extenuating circumstances sometimes, but even when those are taken into account, they are still penalized simply for being women. I know for a fact that my wife has experienced this. The world is a more dangerous place for women. It just is. I don't blame men for that. We will never fully overcome nature's issue where physically stronger beings pose a danger to those who are less physically strong. It's important that we keep trying. Women have more expenses related to feminine hygiene. That's also not men's fault, but it is still an inequality. There's a discrepancy between how much I eat compared to how much she eats. I eat more, a lot more, as I am much bigger than she is. As a result, I should pay more. Additionally, there's more to a relationship than just money. My wife contributes significantly to our marriage, including but not limited to finances. I would hope that she recognizes my contributions extend beyond just a paycheck. For these reasons and others, I am happy to not always go for an equal split. I'm also not going to go for a total imbalance. Lastly, I'm not going to spend my life calculating how much I spend compared to how much she spends. It's easy enough to gauge it by feel. If at the end of the day either of us feels like the other isn't pulling their weight, then we need to speak up. If we feel we can't, or if the other person won't listen, then there are bigger problems and it's time to reassess the relationship. Story 80. If I want to take action, I want her to see me as a real man and a gentleman. This does not mean I will treat her this way forever, but it is like an investment. She has control in this situation. Story 81. I'm not a little coward. It seems many people took it personally. Story 82. Most of the women I dated were independent and well off, to the point where you won't get a second date if you pay for their meal or don't split the bill equally. I would usually say, let me cover this one, and you can get the drinks at the next place we're going to. If she insists on paying her share, she probably doesn't want the date to continue. Story 83. 90% of the time, I offer to pay because I know I can afford it, and it is a great way to see someone's character. Their response is usually a good indicator of how the date will go. Story 84. Because my girlfriend earns significantly less than I do, I don't believe it would be fair for her to pay when I am the one who wants to go out. Story 85. When I was married, we didn't split expenses evenly because we had shared accounts. Date night expenses came from the shared account. There was no sense in dividing something that was drawn from the same pool. Story 86. From a risk-benefits perspective, there is minimal risk in offering to pay and a significant risk in not paying fully. If I have the money, I don't mind doing so to maximize the potential for another date. Honestly, I prefer coffee dates. I have yet to meet a woman of quality who didn't welcome a coffee date. There is less pressure, more focus on the other person, and less emphasis on the food. It's a red flag if a woman only wants the fanciest place and is insulted by a coffee shop. I usually don't go on dates with them, though this has only happened a couple of times. I have consumed a lot of coffee, however. If you were talking while in a relationship, I don't know. Dates seem to be activities that men perform. I have yet to be taken on a date by a woman. It is my responsibility to be the romantic one, to anticipate and engage with their wants and needs, and to interest them. This is fine, but it would be nice to find someone who values me as much as I am expected to value them. Maybe I could finally stop dating and find someone to settle down with. Story 87. Shared economy with my girlfriend, so it doesn't matter now. But for dating back when I was single, I wanted to have fun. Story 88. Simply because I want to and was raised in the South, so it's kind of ingrained in our manners, but this extends beyond dates. I've done the same with friends. For example, back in the military, my best friend was struggling more than I was financially. I'd ask, "Do you want to go to lunch?" He would reply, "I don't have the extra cash." I'd just say, "That's not what I asked." Over 20 years later, when we get together, we never split a bill. One of us pays for it all. Paying for someone's meal just for the company is worth it, in my opinion. The issue arises if you are with someone who isn't able to contribute financially and always wants to eat out. That said, it is nice to be with someone who can and will pay at times. I have no problem with my significant other paying if she wants to. For example, in the past 8 months, we have visited theme parks. The costs were covered by both of us, including food. We like sampling a lot of different small items. Sometimes I'd pay, sometimes she'd pay. We are by no means tracking who pays what to ensure we are splitting the costs equally. We are both just happy with the fact that we are finally in a relationship where the financial responsibility doesn't fall solely on one of us. Story 89. On first dates, I always prefer to split the cost equally. I don't like testing people, but I also don't want to be taken for granted. After the first date, we'll see how things progress. I generally earn more than my dates, so I don't mind covering a larger share, but this typically means I pay for the more expensive outings while she pays for more reasonably priced ones, if she wishes to contribute. When I lived with someone, we divided the bills according to our incomes rather than splitting them evenly. Story 90. I have no problem going half and half, and some women I have dated have offered to pay. However, most women usually do not make an effort to reach for payment and just sit there with a blank look on their face as if it were expected for me to pay. I could call them out on it, but I would rather avoid a scene and pay. It is not like I do not have the money. It also helps with intimacy afterward. So why not? Story 91. It seems foolish to me. Just pay for everything and keep moving forward. Money makes the world go around, and what goes around comes around. Story 92. I began dating when it was still expected for the man to pay, so that is how I always viewed it. Story 93. Most men do not go 50-50 early on because we know that if we do not pay for the first date, there will not be a second. We understand that women expect and demand at least some investment for the first date. The issue arises when women do not invest anything in the first date, but that is a different controversy. Story 94. I have often had girls offer to split the bill. A few have insisted on it. I usually pay the bill for the first date and suggest that they can cover the second date. I do not go to very expensive places, and I do not mind paying since they took the time to meet me. If the dates continue, I expect that we will start splitting or alternating who pays. Story 95. If I ask someone out on a date, I am taking them out on a date. I am not heading out with a friend. We can discuss taking turns paying for a date when we become a couple. Story 96. I believe that my money is our money, while her money is her own. I prefer it that way. I want her to feel appreciated, especially since I may have a lot of stress at work. She has a job and is the primary caregiver for our 2 kids. It's the least I can do. Story 97. Money is somewhat trivial. Real women are priceless and worth far more than the little sheets of blue linen that come and go easily. It's not about manipulation. It's about class. How would I look treating myself to every mild urge I have while keeping a vague idea of how many tens of thousands I felt joy from seeing you smile, feeling your security and comfort in life, and the eyes that are entirely filled with respect and appreciation. The experience of her feeling fortunate to have caught my eye, let alone having me care about her so much and independent of what is in it for me, is invaluable. Those who give off a mere sense of taking advantage of me will never hear my voice or see my face again. I'm essentially sent from heaven if you treat me right. However, if they don't understand that kindness does not equal weakness and guess wrong about me, if they double down on the nonsense or try to give me attitude, I can respond with irrefutable logic and perception that sees through unoriginal behavior. I might say things, rarely in frustration or anger, that resonate in their minds for eternity. Usually, if they care about self-improvement and their quality of life or the caliber of people they attract, about 4 out of 5 will find themselves significantly shifted toward being healthier and more generous friends or lovers in a short period of time. If she is only out for herself, I will take a moment to inform her that she is not clever and is doing herself a serious disservice if she cares about having anyone in her life who might actually be there for her. This is not merely about some shallow interaction, but rather in consideration of all the individuals who may catch her attention for the wrong reasons in the future, those who may not see through her facade. I hope to reduce the impact of the chaos she leaves behind wherever she goes. Moreover, if she wants things she doesn't deserve, most likely because her heart is in the wrong place, she would do much better by focusing on making someone else happy. This is far more likely to provide her the empty and ultimately hollow things she places excessive importance on. So yes, quite literally doing anything other than what she had been doing will guarantee better results, regardless of what she changes or continues to focus on in her heart. The embarrassment of such behavior often brings swift consequences. Or she may exploit someone else to gain funds for revenge if she cannot accept that a man turned her down, put her in her place, and highlighted her flaws with a mix of class and constructive criticism. Criticism she misinterprets as an attack. Many believe they are entirely innocent and above scrutiny, lacking the perceptiveness to see their own faults. Story 98. I would love to share expenses equally, but my girlfriend lost her job and has no money. We don't go on dates anymore, but I pay for her medical bills and everything else that costs her money. She lives with me and we've been together for only a year. I think this is acceptable because we plan to marry. However, I'm really concerned that I'm jeopardizing my retirement fund for someone who may not be around at that time. Story 99. My ex earned 4 times what I do and lives in an area of the country where the cost of living is significantly lower than where I live. Her rent was $750, while mine is almost 3 times that amount. She often preferred to go out rather than stay in, enjoying accommodations at a 5-star hotel instead of a 3-star. She chose restaurants where the meal cost $100 a plate instead of $40, often ordering the $200 seafood tower. She preferred to take rideshare services rather than public transportation. Instead of cooking at home, she preferred dining out. She would rent a luxury car instead of a more economical option. While she would purchase last-minute first-class plane tickets, I preferred to plan 3 to 4 weeks in advance and fly economy class, as we were in a long-distance relationship. Consequently, she covered 85% of expenses, yet I still incurred debt while dating her. Her complaint was that I spent too much on myself or that I should not be paying child support to my former spouse. She believed more of my income should be allocated toward us. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.